Good morning, everyone. The key speakers and Xavier, you can sit there. We are pretty full today, so that's good. In my speech, I wanted to invite you to have a coffee with us in our booth, but I'm afraid that I don't have too much coffee for all of you. But anyway, I'll take the risk, so come after the expert panel to our booth. I'm so happy to be here today with all of you. Moreover, well, it's the last day of the Congress, and all we know that nights in Barcelona are quite tiring during the Congress. So thanks for being here. I'm Mariana Campany. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at ICAR. And before starting the expert panel, I want to introduce you Nicole. Probably you remember her from last year because we also mentioned it in our conference and in our booth. We know that she's Nicole, mostly because I told you, and you have to believe me. But what do we know about her? Look, it's not a secret that we live in a digital world, right? And with this reality comes the increasingly complex task of matching the person's digital identity to the physical world. So let me explain about Nikki. She's 29, and she loves traveling. In 2 weeks, she will be doing a 6-month road trip around North America. So we met for a coffee the other day just before she leaves. And, well, it was a typical friendly conversation about friends, family, and this stuff. And I started to talk about my job, that in ICAR we validate identity using a fantastic technology. Actually, she's not a geek like me. And when I started to talk about technology, digital transformation, OCR, I think she stopped listening to me. But I think she gets something, she understood something. Because she wanted to explain how she organized the trip and all the steps she did or she made related to the customer onboarding. Everything started last year when she wanted to save some money, and she went to a branch office to open a savings bank account. So after waiting half an hour, presenting her ID, I think also a pay slip, she became a customer, so pretty fine. Once she had enough money, she decided to buy the flight tickets. I'm pretty sure that all of you have traveled, so you know what they ask when you travel, that you have to fill out a form with all your personal data, and some days before leaving, you can scan your passport just for the online check-in. So Nikki also did everything. Nicole needed a travel insurance, so she set up a policy, and she had to send also the personal data, the bank account details, the travel details, the ID, and other documents in order to have this policy. She's a millennial, 29, she's a millennial. The M is from millennial. And she is a great Instagrammer. And she even created a hashtag that it was like Nikki Road Trip. It was so funny. And she needed a new iPhone, or she wanted, because needed is not that. But she wanted a new iPhone and a new phone line. So she set up a new iPhone, a new phone line. And she had to repeat the process, presenting the ID, presenting the bank account details, and also sign some contracts. Oh yes, I think the iPhones aren't cheap, so she had to ask for a credit in a fintech just to get also the iPhone. So she had to repeat again the whole process. Yes, nowadays, every process, every agreement, every new product or service acquisition has a digital record that must be identified and verified. I realized that Nicole, had created several digital identities, digital and physical identities, and that probably she was the sum of all of them. So for the entities and also for the users, offering an omnichannel identity verification platform is critical for both. I was excited talking with her about ICAR and that we offer a complete and a fully automatic technology that validates identity but also helps to build the digital identity profile of the user using different technologies. I'm not going to enter with our technology, but it was so nice to explain to her how we help to this. We focus on 3 main market needs. The first one is the customer experience, because we never get a second chance to make a good first impression. So if the technology is not easy to use, your customers will go somewhere else. The second one was the fraud prevention, because it's critical for the entities, and as more digital transactions you will have, more fraud also you will have. So it's a good point, the fraud prevention. And the third one was a question we made ourselves, that is how we do connect the digital identity to the physical identity, right? Well, today we have an excellent discussion panel because digital identities are a requirement of our new world. And we need innovation. We need innovation to make it happen, okay? And also the collaboration of all the different ecosystems in the market. Today we have some of them in an excellent discussion panel that I hope, and I'm pretty sure that you will find fascinating. Xavier Codó, our CEO of ICAR, will introduce all the key speakers. You can come, everybody can come here, and we'll moderate the panel. So again, thank you very much for being here. All yours.
Thank you, Mariona. First of all, we'd like to start by thanking to our key speakers to be here, to share with us their knowledge. And it's a pleasure to have in the same place some professionals from different sectors like fintech, banking, and telcos industries. So let me introduce them. So Fernando García-Quismondo is the Corporate Technology Manager in the Group of Santander. He's in charge of researching all the technology aspects involved in digital identity trends, as well as leading innovative proof of concepts to assess feasibility and possible uses of new technologies inside the security ecosystem. Xavier Anglada is the CEO of CashCredit, a lending fintech. Xavi has more than 20 years of experience in fintech, digital, and TMT spaces. Currently is CEO in Santander Group, a fintech player with operation in Eastern Europe, Asia Pacific, and Africa. And Josep Grau is Digital Innovation Project Manager in CaixaBank. Josep has a wide knowledge and experience on innovation in banking and financial institutions. As a fintech expert, he has experience in digital identity and others, but particularly, one of his major areas of interest is blockchain. And finally, Óscar Mancebo is Head of Mobile Connect in Grupo Telefónica. Óscar is Senior Product Manager for Security and Identity area and Head of Mobile Connect, with more than 15 years of experience in the telecommunication center. So thank you to be here. So from them, we learn the new trends regarding the identity innovation and how to transform the financial services and telco industries. So we will analyze a number of key points, including the challenge of identity verification, the rise relevance of user experience and regulation in the solutions, and the benefits of sharing customer information. So the first block is related to identity verification and biometric technology. I'd like to start asking you, Fernando, what are your goals in the KYC and onboarding identity verifications, and what challenge do you have to achieve these goals?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all the audience for coming. Well, I should say that the first challenge that we have as any bank is to fulfill with the compliance and the regulator. That's it. But I think that after that, there's something more more important is that, as we saw in the presentation that Mariana did, we are entering more and more every day, every year. We are entering into a digital world. Every company has gone into digital channels and so on. And now we have a digital life. We have everything is digital, but we do not realize how difficult is the digital world. We do not realize which are the implications of that digital world where, okay, we buy and sell in a different way in the digital world. We behave in a very different way. Everybody has some social network and we behave in a different way. We have different crimes in the digital world. So at the end, this digital world, I think it goes far beyond the world. It's a sort of a dimension, a new dimension, a fifth digital dimension beyond the physical space and time. It's a new dimension. I think that we don't realize the difficulties of that. And at the end of the day, we have a digital me and a real me. And we have to establish a secure proxy between both of them. And we have to establish it through a good ID verification and through biometrics. Biometrics, at the end of the day, is the proxy between the digital me and the real me. So that is the biggest challenge, I mean, not only for a bank, but also for any of the companies.
Thank you.
Building on Fernando's point, I think it's in our case we've found that operating in emerging markets where formal sorts of identification are not really mostly prevalent. For instance, a case in the Philippines, we operate in an environment with 21 different national IDs, different types. No one covers the whole spectrum of the population. So we do need a certain degree of a process of biometrics checks so that this physical person can be checked over an ID that may be, well, not a real one, a fraud one, or so we do need this type of technology to bring services, financial services that bring economic and financial inclusion to these individuals, right? We're talking about 80+% of the population in that country, but I would say that even bigger percentages in sub-Saharan Africa. So I do believe that there is an inclusion element into biometrics that beyond what is regulation, it can help bring wealth and economic welfare into segments that are completely unbanked or underbanked.
Yeah, I completely agree with what I think that the elections require more than substantial demand. But I think that the regulation is the one. The regulator is the one to decide. Try? Okay, yeah. Well, sorry. Yeah, I was saying that the regulator is one of the biggest part of this process, because at some point it's the one who drives us to at least to push the technology and make them understand how this could be. I don't know if...
Yes, of course. So I fully agree with your statements. So the digital world is claiming to all the actors or all the parties that are part of this digital ecosystem to evolve into a simplification of how the users are, let's say, identify across all the areas that they used to consume, they used to access to consume services. That is a challenge that we have on top of the table, and that is something that at the operator's side, we are linking very much with the initiative that you introduced, this Mobile Connect. So as part of Mobile Connect, we are trying to define a concept that is called digital hard identity. It's, in some words, is the link between the physical identity and the digital identity. This is something that, of course, the operators cannot build alone. This is something that we need to do all together, but there is something that the operators can bring as a really great value to that ecosystem. Let me put an example. Probably you know that in Latin America during many years, the prepaid cards didn't need to have a user verification, an identity verification to be issued. So you were able to go to the retail, physical retail, ask for a prepaid SIM card, and you didn't need to present any credential to get it. Now the governments are imposing some changes at the regulatory point of view, in which they are asking the operators to strengthen the processes of enrolling new users and the process in which we are issuing new SIM cards. As part of that stronger processes, what they are demanding is, okay, at the time that you are going to issue a new SIM card, you will have to run a strong identity verification against a government registry. That is a clear example. So now there is a strong demand from the industry to run that identity verification in order to control fraud and many, many other data breaches that are appearing. So KYC Match is a hot topic and a hot demand now.
Yes, and in fact, following what you're saying is great because sometimes, how many digital identities do we have?
Yeah.
Because the point after all is, can you hear me or?
No.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just discussing about how many digital identities do we have. I am a customer of Santander, for sure. I have one digital identity for Santander. I am also a customer at Caixa. I hope that nobody from the bank is around here. So, and I am a customer of Telefónica as well. So, and I have 3 digital identities because we don't have some established mechanism. Is working again? Yeah. I think that we don't have an established mechanism to be sure that we have one single identity in the digital world that we can share between all of us. So at the end, we have many, many identities. It's something that we have to deal with it.
In fact, yes, I fully agree. In fact, I will say that the challenge is not to have a single digital ID for each of the users. So the challenge is how we are able to connect all the contexts that represent to the user in the digital world. Because at the end, what is representing me in Facebook is a context. What is representing me in Telefónica when I'm consuming digital services is my phone number and or my fixed line at my home. So when I'm represented in the bank, I'm represented because I have a product, I have a bank account, I have a credit card. So how we are able to connect all these contexts that represent to the user, that is the challenge that we have on top of the table.
Let me be with the... Do you hear me? Yes,
yeah.
Sorry. Let me be a bit the disruptor in the discussion regarding regulation, because yes, I don't know if we have regulators here in the room, but it would be good to have it to get a bit. So one of the things we're seeing is that innovation will not come from regulation, right? So the new business models are the ones that will make the industry evolve. And it's not technology, it's that the business model that will make it evolve. And that's why it's important that we are 2 steps ahead of regulation. And then, of course, regulation will have to enter and play their role into controlling that we protect data security of the individuals, then money laundering and so on, all these things, right? But I would never like to justify the lack of achieving something because there's major goals we have ahead of us with digital can be leveraged very soon. Because we have a regulator that is not helping. I think we need to lobby, we need to explain, we need to over-communicate with them to make sure they understand the intrinsic benefits of doing things radically different. And this is where starting to share information about the different parties and so on, the way we onboard people, the way we share the fraud information or blacklist we individually have is critical. It's not only critical for small companies such as ours, but it can be very critical for you guys as a large corporate, right?
Well, I don't know if I'm pretty agree with you in that point. Of course, regulator always, regulation and innovation, it's always in a fight. I completely agree with this. But for the case of the PSD2, is the regulation that drives us to rethink how all the processes that we currently have can be reassessed and reprocessed. And in that case, the data is from the user, and the user have the right and the whole control of its data at this point. So I don't know, it's going to be kind of a couple of years of very big changes, I think.
Yeah, what do you think about the regulation? Yeah, we are breaking your agenda, sorry. We into the discussion. No, regarding the PSD2, it's something that, okay, the RTS, the specifications were released last week. And if you see, well, I don't know if you have read it extensively. I hope not. I haven't either. But what I have seen is that finally they are ambiguous enough for not closing how we are going to communicate between the banks. And that is a result of the lobbies. I mean, it's funny how people think that the large banks are always making lobbies with the regulators. No, we are suffering the regulators in the same way as the fintechs. Believe me, we are suffering this. And it's difficult. And regarding what you were saying and what we were discussing before, is also when we say about establishing an ecosystem and sharing data and sharing identity, we are also customers. Every day. We also want the right to privacy, as you were mentioning, and the right to anonymity, because sometimes we don't want to leave the trace of what we are doing. And obviously, here comes the regulators, and here comes our technology risk officer, and those are saying, no, we cannot allow anonymity because that opens the door for crime. Yeah, but sometimes we would like to be anonymous in a digital world which is more and more connected, where companies share data, where a Google or something like that knows where we are, what have we done, what are we looking on TV and so on. Say, okay, I would like to be alone, to be in the real world for some moments and not being traced and followed up by all these companies, by this big brother, which is not a single big brother, but a set of big brothers around us. Don't you think so?
Yes, so talking about sharing data, consider how much robust the identity verification process could be if you could share user data records, for instance, Josep.
Yeah. Yes, of course. While sharing all this customer information would lead to reducing the onboarding cost, it would also help the user in order to do some frictionless process. And at the end, should be us, and when I say us, is the different entities, banks, or identity managers, or fintechs also, that will have to have the user throughout all this process, make it as usable as possible, because if we don't make it as usable as possible, the user will go to another place where he will find, he will feel more comfortable in well, wherever he will find better customer experience is wherever he will go. Just look at the case of Google, Amazon. I mean, the Amazon probably is not the best case since about a couple of days ago. But user experience, it's really challenging, at least for...
Look, and I think here in the mobile we've seen some news from Telefónica, so how the new platform has been presented and how to leverage the different sources of data and layers of data to create a vertical before the individual about what can I do with this data to have my user experience much better, right? So I think it is, we are sitting on top of a number of dimensions of data that is there. It's just we need to cross what is helping create customer experience, but of course we'll need to put some filters to make sure that there is protection and so on. That's why we have no more CIOs but chief security officers as well right now, because it's security of the data is as important as it is the information itself. But I think there's big players already making some steps there. I think then it's all about us to train the customers, to educate them, and to make sure that we learn from the failures, because we are very good at these forums to explain the best cases, the use cases that succeeded. But we need to explain as well how many have failed on the run. Don't you have failure cases and so on? Maybe.
We can talk about it now, yes, sir. No, well, I would be interested in listening to Óscar later to tell us about the new platform, the fourth platform. But what we were saying about sharing data and interesting, I think it's, well,
from a personal perspective, I am more than willing to do these kind of things. But in the real life, I think it's more difficult to achieve that than finding a taxi here in the Mobile World Congress during these days, somehow. Because there's some reluctancy, and the companies think that you're making your enemy, your competitor, coming, and okay, they are getting my data, what are they going to do? So at the end, sometimes we break, and we prefer to rely on a third party, or trust in fintechs that we feel more comfortable, but we prefer to rely on a third party, and this is something that we suffered in the past. You have here 3 of the companies, Telefónica, Caixa, and Santander, that built a few years ago a person-to-person payments platform, which was called Yap Money, and it failed. It has disappeared last year. We didn't succeed, and it was a success from a technology point of view. It worked perfectly, but I don't know.
Were the management of these companies really bought into this, or it was something for a PR event? So we have partnered with the different parties to make this. One of the issues I've seen in my professional life, I've seen a lot of nice marketing communication about new products that partners with different parties, but then the boards and the ExComs are not bought into this. They say, no, but we need to protect our assets, right? The IP, so this is nice. There is not a true DNA of collaboration. Mm-hmm. And this is where the transformation and what will make our Trio be successful in the future, if this collaboration with Facebook can be brought into financial services as well, can be brought into other IoT type of players that could be put in the ecosystem. So the customer, Nicole, when she wants to do this 6-month trip, she really has a one-stop shop interaction point, not 6 onboarding processes, blah, 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 and throughout the experience, right? I don't think there is the DNA in the company, so that the internal management needs to change. There is a change management process that needs to happen.
It's good that you said that, not me.
What do you think about what benefits and stoppers could you have?
I think that it was 1.5 years ago when César Alierta announced the new Telefónica strategic plan, call it with a slogan, which is it all. And behind this, there was let's say, an intention of changing the way in which we are building the services. So we want to place the user at the center of the services. And this is something that we didn't just to do in a very easy way, because we were very focused in the B2C traditional services, legacy services. We sell voice, we sell data, we sell any telco product, but in a very, let's say, easy way. In the other part of the business, we had the traditional B2B, in which is just engagement and relationship with big customers with which we exchange business. At that time, we made the decision of creating what we call a B2C2B. So it is, let's try to build product that the consumer like, and those consumers are going to demand those products to the service provider. In this way, we will close the loop. So we will make happy our customers, our consumers, but at the same time, we will have new businesses with which we will work. So this was just the beginning. You said before, during these days, we have made an announcement in which we have presented the 4 platform that is a concept in which we want to bring to the consumer the full control of the data that Telefónica has of them. So one of the major concerns that currently have the digital user is the privacy. What is happening with my data? I know that so many of them are starting to realize that nothing is for free in internet. When you download an app and that app is free, really it's not free. You are paying with your data. So this is a very hot topic, and the way of managing that concern is in a collaboration way, in a jointly way, because we can offer that product to our consumer for Telefónica info. But what happens with the rest of the digital info that is moving, is traveling in internet? So we need to build that ecosystem again So this demonstrates that what the industry is demanding is to create an ecosystem in which all the big players regulate it, because a part of the problems that the regulation represents for us in terms of how fast we can move, normally it's not so fast. The good thing is that we have a level of confidence in front of the consumers because we are regulated organizations. So we need to take that lever and use it in front of those organizations that are not regulated, that can do what they want to do without any control. So I think that is the challenge that we have now.
Not only regulated, but also with a very strong cybersecurity DNA, because sometimes when you listen to some incumbents that are coming and say, okay, but are you really prepared for the new digital world? Are you prepared for the cyber attacks that will come in the following years? It's something that we have to do it because we are regulated and we have to comply with very strong rules about it. But some small companies that think they're going to eat the world doing things, they are very insecure. And we will see what happens in the future.
So I'm sure that everyone has heard that the claim that blockchain will revolutionize the world, businesses, companies, economies. So how do you believe blockchain can help this identity verification information sharing becoming a reality? Josep, if you want to.
Thank you. Well, the thing is that by having a shared, using the attributes that blockchain offers, could lead us to have a secure database which is encrypted with a shared ledger amongst the different participants, and it provides us the security that the content is not tampered. So by this, we could at the end having an identity where the customer could access to this identity in any of the participants that this would be, for instance, the telco company, the fintech that is connected to this network, or any kind of the bank. But truth be told, there are some challenges that need to be controlled, because the use of this data, since it's not possible to alter or modify the data, at some point we may lose the right to delete or modify this data. So what if the customers they don't want to be any more part of this network? And there are some other challenges like, well, of course, decentralization is good, but it could offer a single barrier that can be broken. So if any hacker or any malicious source is trying to attack it, it would be at some point can be distributed across the network, and the same data that I'm sharing with you, that is supposed to be, it was supposed to be good and faithful and was going to help us in order to fight against the fraud. At the end, it's fraud itself. So at some point, this is another challenge that that can be, and of course liability. So who would be in charge of this mistake or security intrusion? Because if I'm using this data that you provide me, I should trust you, because you are going to trust the data that I'm providing from my customers itself. So of course that there are legal issues regarding to this, but the major point is the standardization, and it's related to all of we are talking. So which kind of data can be proper to be used on this database, which data is going to be asked for, which are going to be the protocols, the procedures. So at some point, of course, the technology it's very disruptive, and at some point will help to this process, but it's not mature enough. Of course, I don't know if
it's curious how we differently see the world, right? And we're only neighbors here. So I tend to believe that the technologies need to be enablers, right? And they will evolve into this. I see blockchain as like decades ago when the www started, right? So the use cases, some use cases about how it was being used in some telco, in some big tech companies, right, to exchange information among divisions and so on. It helped to spread the benefits of having a connected IP wall, right? So I see similarly today the blockchain space. So we do not have answers for all these questions for sure. We don't even have an answer about who's going to regulate blockchain, right? So do we have a national regulator? Do we have a global one? Do we have a many? So if we start challenging ourselves on the one we don't have, it's not going to evolve. To me, we should revert and say there's a ring-fenced use case we can do of blockchain to be used in this application, and there's many already being tested, even from new companies, right? That I think gives so much importance to it. And the one we are talking about sharing information, the biometrics, bank information, telcos, so on. So that it's an amazing source of insight and information that the customer can have to have a better service, access to completely new services. And even we shouldn't talk about all services, new services, right? In emerging markets, when I can connect telco data with location, I can assess willingness and readiness and capability of the individual to repay a microloan. Why shouldn't I be using this? We have 2.5 billion people in the world unbanked or underbanked. And I'm talking a segment that maybe it's not that profitable towards the rest of the segments in the Western world, but it's 2.5 billion adult people that do not have any access to financial services, guys. So this type of technology are key enablers for these guys to have first step into this, right? And it's cheap because the cost to serve is extremely cheap. You don't have to have all these ledgers, all these processes that takes time for approvals. Come on, I see the bottle half full.
I think that the trend is clear. So we need to go into an ecosystem in which the source of data are going to be distributed and in some way connected. So let me put an example of a project that is ongoing. Is taking some time because all the projects that used to be led by the governments are not easy to move. But in the UK, the Cabinet Office is leading an initiative in which they are building like a hub of identity in which they have identified and certified 7 private IDPs in which there are banks. What they are building is across all these 7 IDPs, the British citizens are able to consume online services, online government services, running like a KYC verification process. So they are able to access to the typical online council service, and they will select one of these 7 IDPs to validate the data that they are introduces. As part of that verification, they have promoted that these 7 private IDPs can rely on the telco, on the operators, to strengthen that user verification. So a part of the info that they have internally in their databases, they will also verify the data against the operator's data. If one name and second name is matching in both in the IDP and in the telco, it has a more credibility and a better value against the government when they are presenting the data. This is a clear example. So there is not a single point verifying all the user data. So they rely on 7 IDPs, and these 7 IDPs rely on the 4 telco in UK. That's for a specific country. If we build this, or we try to build this at a region level, like in Europe, relying on the EIDAS framework and all the initiative around the evolution of the electronic identification for citizens, I think that it's a real opportunity. But I agree, I don't know if blockchain will be the technology or not. It's clear that the distribution of the data sources is necessary.
Mm-hmm. It should be something, if not blockchain as it is today, something very similar. But as you're mentioning, the GovUK Verify, the initiative, when I saw it, it's wow, it's amazing. But later I thought, okay, why don't they include biometrics here? Mm-hmm. Because at the end, you have to verify based on data or based on verification using the mechanisms that those companies or banks or utilities companies have. But why don't you include biometrics so this citizen can later use those biometrics for whatever service, whichever service? I don't know if they are working on that. To be honest, I'm not in contact with the government.
Biometric is a technology, it's a concept that is gaining a lot of traction worldwide. So in Telefónica, we have presence in Latin America, and in Latin America also, and the biometric is gaining traction. So you go to India, we are launching Mobile Connect with SIS operators there in India, and biometric is gaining a lot of traction. So the biometric is a technology that is going to be part of the future, because the end users are starting to use it day by day for accessing their devices and for being authenticated. The challenge here is to know which of them is going to be let's say, the good one. So we are testing several technologies. We can talk about fingerprint, we can talk about voice recognition, face recognition, iris recognition, pros and cons, and again, coming to the beginning, who is going to make the decision which is the good one will be the user. So we need to validate with the users what they expect, what they want. So from a personal point of view, maybe iris recognition is so funny to use, it's so easy, and it's a fashion. It's probably one of the most fashion. But what do the users think about this? Are they happy putting their phone in front of the iris and making any kind of reading of the iris? So it's something that needs a strong validation from the industry.
I have a very funny story about it. We did a pilot last year, a process in which at some moment you had to do a selfie in order to validate your identity. And we asked a neuroscience-based company to do a test, okay, to see what the customers felt about the process. Not what they say at the end, but what they felt. And you could see, okay, the time that they require for doing the process, the attention that they have to pay, which is not bad. At some point you have to pay attention. And also the negative perception. Okay, we had all the process, and at the selfie point, we saw that the time was obviously very short, the attention was very short, but the negative perception was very high. We said, okay, we were amazed. We couldn't believe it. Everybody knows about taking a selfie, and okay, this is probably for the eldest people that they are not used to. When we drilled down into the results, we saw that the segment, it wasn't the only one, but the largest segment that had an impact on that was the segment of women between 25 and 34 years. We said, why? And then we looked at the videos that we took during the process, and we could see that at the selfie moment, they raised the telephone, not all of them, that's another thing. They raised and they started touching their hair though and so on. And I said, okay, I understand them. We have not been clear enough to let them know that we are not going to store that picture. We are not going to use that picture for anything else apart from validating the identity. So we put a video before the process and explaining that this picture is not for identifying, just for your security and so on. And this helped to reduce this curve. But it's something that we always think that biometrics is perfect because of security, but we don't realize the impact of using biometrics. I remember when I started using the Touch ID or the fingerprint, I remember the first times that I had to put my fingers was when I was entering some frontier. And I always felt, okay, this is something related to bad security, criminals or things like that. Okay, once that Samsung and Apple introduced the Touch ID, the sensor there, now putting your fingerprint is cool.
When there is a customer benefit, people adopt faster, one. And two, these people that were, these ladies that were not liking the,
it wasn't only the ladies, okay? It was only the biggest segment.
The point is that I'm sure that when they were finishing the test, they were doing a selfie and putting it in Instagram, right? I've been interviewed by these guys. So it's about, there is a benefit of showing yourself, and the Instagram, they wouldn't challenge themselves to do that. But when there is a third party that asks a photo for something, they will say, well, I feel uneasy with this, right? So let's make sure that we overspend communication time to explain the benefits. And then adoption will increase. And it's like the take-up of e-commerce, right? It took a while, but now, Amazon is going to become the retailer of the world, right? No doubt. Why? And who would buy before 10 liters of milk over the internet?
There is a very important thing to analyze when we build, let's say, innovative services. There is a clear differences between the technology being used because they like it, because they want it, because they are having a value, that when the technology is something required, it's mandatory. So you are making a selfie because you want to upload the picture in Instagram, and you are happy with that. But you are not happy when you are required to make a selfie for accessing your online services, because it's something that the bank is imposing. And the feeling that the user has at this moment is completely different. So that is part of the education process. We need to make them part of that process. We need to make them to feel that this is something that is bringing them a value. And to do that, first we need to know what they expect from us. So not to think that biometric is what they are going to expect. Not. Let's explore, let's analyze. In case the biometric is what they are expecting, in which way they are expecting to use it.
Yeah, it was also another of the stories several years ago. The first deployment that we made at the group, Santander Group, of biometrics was voice biometrics in Santander, Mexico. At the beginning, it was voluntary. There was another branch in the IBR. If you want to be more secure, you can access using voice biometrics. You have to enroll and so on. And we could minimize the risk and everything. At some point, we made it mandatory. Okay, many people called to the call center complaining about this biometric thing. And the reason was not only because they didn't like to say 3 times at Santander, my voice is my password in order to enroll. No, because they considered that typing their 4 digits passcode was more user-friendly, and it was secure enough, and it was better for them. So why do I have to change for this thing? No, because it's more secure for you. No, but I'm used to my 4 digits password. Why do I have to change? We cannot put the blame on the customer, for sure. Well, sometimes we should, but it's a question of educating.
It's on us.
It's on us, always on us. But even if it is on us, and I agree absolutely with you, and we have to make a better education process, at the end, sometimes they don't listen. In this example that I said about the selfie, you say, okay, please rise up the mobile phone in order to take the selfie. Well, it's natural. If you're typing here and you get the selfie point, you don't rise the telephone. There were many of them that tried to make the selfie from this position. And obviously, okay, some wonderful biometrics, facial biometrics can determine, but if you are looking at the person from below, it's more complicated. And we had explained to them, we had an introduction video to explain that it's better if they rise the telephone. Many of them, everybody, as individuals, we do not read instructions. We do not listen to instructions. We think that everybody should be plug and play.
I'd like to ask a last question. We have been talking about blockchain, about sharing customer information. So, who do you think will become the owner of this customer information split across the block, across everywhere?
The customer.
Yes.
Yeah. The customer, and we're going to have to pay for it. I'm absolutely convinced. Because at the end of the day, so the Nicole's is one, right? And the digital and the physical, there's going to be people that link these two, but the Nicole, she needs to own that, and based on the benefits she gets, she's going to share or give the consent for her and the information to be shared for end products and for companies and so on. But to the ultimate owner should be the customer.
No, completely agree. I mean, it's he or she the one who has the right of clearing or modifying its data or just becoming erased from the database.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. Just to end with a small joke, let's say, we have to give the power to the customer for sure, but we have to let them understand that having a great power implies a great responsibility as well. So they are not Spider-Man, but
for sure. They will have to got the power of the control of the data, but take care how we pass that control. So they don't want to have or to become that control in a pain for them. So we need to make it simple, make it easy, to minimize the number of interactions to the user, so that he feels that is having the control without having to interact so much. That is the key.
Okay. So I think it's been a good discussion, even with some controversy. It's that we like. It's always interesting. We have learned what some professionals, some big players think about the key questions that we must need in order to build our future. So thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for you.